My 26-year-old girlfriend has a very low sex drive, while I'm basically the opposite. Neither of us is inexperienced, and it's not like I haven't tried all of the normal things that usually help. I do love her deeply, and we've talked about this. I'm willing to tolerate it, but lately it's been at most 2 to 3 times a month, and that leads to some hard feelings that I bottle up until we have sex again, mostly. Did anyone get used to this kind of life? Did you start feeling some kind of resentment? I've thought about trying to decrease my sex drive or something, maybe medication. I don't really know. She is an amazing girl and deserves the world. I understand I'm in a tough situation. I just didn't want to give up too easily. I still have some things to talk about with her and explain more clearly that this is indeed a deal breaker. Story 1. Take my word for it. This will never change. It will only get worse, and your resentment will keep building. Sorry, man. Find a woman who likes sex before your life becomes completely miserable. Story 2. There is a high chance that this will not change. The fact that you love her deeply makes this a very difficult decision. I feel for you. Sex drives, along with many other factors that contribute to a stable and long-term relationship, are key considerations. You think you can change someone, but you can't. You can tweak things that are less important to be closer in compatibility, but the major aspects like sex drives, financial literacy, wanting children, and even religion are not really things you are going to change and are extremely important. A good conversation would be to share your feelings about the importance that sex plays in your life, to share your frustrations, and to see if counseling, conversations, or possibly something medical is necessary to improve this. Your willingness to find ways to decrease your drive is admirable but will lead to long-term resentment. Story 3. Sex drives change over time. I have been with my wife since we were teenagers. When we were young, we both wanted it all the time. Hers slowed down a lot in our 20s due to work stresses, and it became difficult when the kids were young too. Now we're in our mid-30s, and mine is the one that's slowed down while hers has picked up. Marriage vows include things like good times and bad, sickness and health, with the idea being that if you truly love a person, you'll find a way to make it work. Maybe today you want sex more than her, and maybe 10 years from now a medical condition leaves you unable to perform. Would you leave her if a medical condition made her unable to perform sexually? Story 4. Was it always this way, or did something change? Is she on hormonal birth control? Is she depressed or stressed? Is she taking on lots of responsibilities around the house? Would she be open to meeting your needs in some other way? Sometimes I cannot be bothered to have sex, but I try to compromise with my partner, and we have come to some agreements. What types of conversations have you had about this with her? What methods have you used to try and reach a balance where you are both happy? You have touched upon it in your post, but specifically, what did you try? You cannot take her for a meal once a week, tell her to put on some lingerie, rub her back for 3 minutes, and then suddenly expect her to be eager for it. Have you tried talking to her about any fantasies or preferences she has? I know everyone is saying to end the relationship, but honestly, women's sex drives can be complex. Assuming you have ruled out hormonal issues and emotional issues and established that she is definitely still attracted to you, then maybe have a talk about breaking up if it is purely a libido mismatch. I had the same issues with my partner, so we had to get a little bit creative. It is working well so far. Story 5. If you tell her it is a deal breaker, it sounds like an ultimatum. Give me more sex or I leave you. If she does indeed give you more sex, it will be despite the fact that she does not want to, and she will begin to hate you and herself for it. Story 6. Before giving up on the relationship, as most people are suggesting, try to check if there is an underlying problem. One of the most common reasons for lack of intimacy is that one person in the relationship is extremely stressed and overworked. Often the woman, because too often the woman ends up having to care for the house, the kids, shopping, cooking, and more in addition to working a full-time job. When you are stressed and exhausted, your sex drive drops and you start to feel resentment towards your partner, who you feel does less than you. I'm not saying that this is necessarily the case here. I'm not accusing you of being lazy or anything. I don't know you, but it's a very common root cause, and it's worth thinking about at least. Talk with your girlfriend about how she feels about stress levels, chores, and so on, and be prepared to step up if it turns out that she needs you to do a bigger part of them. Story 7. Currently dealing with my girlfriend with something similar. We've drifted apart from each other, from being in bed every day to now having no intimacy. We're at the point where we no longer fight, just ignore each other. I try to make things work, get the flame going again, but she just looks away and watches TikTok all day. Once the lease is up this month, I'm breaking up with her because the love is gone, and there's no point in trying to make someone else love you when they don't have any interest in you anymore. Story 8. You are asking a subjective question as if there's an objective answer. Sounds like you are not compatible. If not having enough sex bothers you, no matter how much you love her won't make a difference. No judgment, by the way, it is unfortunate, but that's really all there can be, deciding how okay you are or are not with the situation. Hoping the best for you. Story 9. Brilliant post and good answers. In summary, I agree it will not improve. My story. English had a liberal attitude and had been around a bit. Met my wife, Irish Catholic. Sex wasn't discussed in her upbringing. It's what others do. Her mom and dad weren't great role models, different rooms, floors of the house, etc. Her one big love turned out to be gay. We met and her sexual needs exploded. We did all sorts everywhere. Both loved it. 10 years married, 2 kids in, and the bedroom is dead. She wouldn't agree. Doesn't seem to want to address it. But it is. I don't even think it's the how often. I can masturbate if I want to get off quick. It's the intimacy, the desire, the want. If we do have sex, it's the same, me initiating it, kissing, breasts, fingers, maybe oral sex, intercourse. She suddenly went off receiving oral about 4 years ago. She used to love it. I'm almost bored of it myself. It would be amazing if she surprised me with oral sex or a position she'd seen or heard about or a new way of something, but it's almost like the giving and receiving pleasure receptors are dead. Heartbreaking. The lowest libido always wins. Story 10. Replying to your edit. If you feel strongly enough about her, this isn't necessarily a deal breaker. I've always had a high sex drive, but I can count the women I've had sex with on one hand, and it has been years since the last time I had sex. I've never been into flings, so I don't do the type of activities that lead to meeting lots of women. I don't go out a whole lot, especially not to bars or clubs. I caught on early that I wanted to avoid the situation that so many men find themselves in. Separated or divorced, paying child support for kids that they never get to see. Sounds like a nightmare, so I avoided it. I understand that my situation and yours are not the same, but not receiving the amount of sex that we desire is something we have in common. It's hard and it requires discipline, but if you really love her that much, if you love her deeply and think she's amazing, then give another thought to not writing her off just yet. At least you get some sex. The last time I had any was before COVID-19. Are you really willing to give up what you have now just for more sex? If sex is really that important to you, then more power to you. Do what you need to do. Just be aware that sex is easy to find, but good women are becoming rarer by the day. If you leave her for sex, don't complain later when the only women you can find are worthless ones. Story 11. Sexual compatibility is important in any relationship. It sounds like it is missing from yours. Unless she is willing to do something to improve her sex drive, which sometimes just is not possible and is just the way one is, this is not going to change. Story 12. I have had 2 relationships like this. Here is my advice. Move on. You cannot force a person with a low sex drive to want or participate in sexual activities when they do not want to or are not capable. As much as it may be difficult, the best thing to do is break things off on good terms and find someone more compatible with your needs. The problem can be discussed, and it may even get marginally better for a little bit, but I promise it will slowly, if not abruptly, go back to how it is now. In time, the problem will even become worse. It is a hard pill to swallow, but it is always the case. People with low drives will not ever be on the same page as someone with a high drive, and you will both grow to resent each other. They will grow to dislike that you require them to give more than they are comfortable with, and you will resent them for not being able to give as much as you need to satisfy your needs. Save both of you the heartache and find someone else. Story 13. Hey, I'm a woman, but my husband and I have different sex drives. Reading about women's sex drives in the book, Come As You Are, and Come Together by sex researcher Emily Nagoski was very eye-opening and helpful. It might be good for you both to read and try before calling it quits. Story 14. Married 24 years. Together 27 years. Once every 3 to 4 months. Sex. Absolutely no oral, dirty talk, or imagination. A couple of times a year, she will be into it. Other than that, it is just a warm body. How to survive. Be a dishonest husband with others until you're old enough that you don't care and honestly can't get it up due to the millions of times being told no. If this doesn't work for you, then you know what needs to be done. My wife is a beautiful person, close to being my best friend. She is a good mother and a good person. We make a fun, great couple. Sex is the one area where there are issues. Can you be married long-term without sex? My opinion is no. But that is one opinion, an honest truth to the world opinion. The internet hates me and what I said, but it is the truth. Story 15. My brother in Christ, you are going to have to accept a loss on this one. I had an ex-girlfriend who was great, and I loved her deeply. We had the same issue. I would have the same experience, only getting it from her twice a month if I was lucky. At first, it was okay, just like you, and I would find things to occupy my time or distract myself from it. I ended up resenting her, and it led me to believe she was cheating or didn't love me. That wasn't the case. She just didn't have a sex drive like that. Needless to say, before your mental health caves in on itself, accept that it is what it is and move on. Story 16. My husband and I have been married for 20 years, but that part of our marriage has always been a struggle. And I'm pretty sure there's some resentment on both sides. My sex drive has never been great and has only gotten worse with kids and added responsibilities. Can you make it work? Yes. Is it easy? No. Story 17. If she is an amazing girl and deserves the world, then she deserves someone who matches her in every way, including the sexual aspect. I had a similar problem with my ex-girlfriend, and in the end, the differences we had were always there, so I had to let her go. Story 18. Brother, it is a deal breaker. Unless you are happy with taking care of it yourself the other 26 to 29 days a month, you all just are not aligned in that. I agree there are many more aspects that build into a relationship, but you have to be honest with yourself about how much weight this portion carries. Godspeed. May the universe be forever in your favor. Story 19. I agree with the comments here that it will only get worse and will lead to frustration as you both get older. If sex is important to you, which I believe is the case, then have a serious evaluation of your relationship before it's too late. In my case, we both had equally high sex drive in our 20s, but her sex drive declined dramatically in her 50s, and now in her 60s, sex is now 2 or 3 times a month from twice a week. Story 20. I'm a woman who has experienced a decrease in attraction to partners before, which I thought was due to low libido, but was actually because I didn't feel like my partners listened to me or prioritized my pleasure. I'm curious to know what you consider intimacy to be. Is it about you experiencing pleasure, or do you want to see her experiencing pleasure too? I would guess that you're not prioritizing her pleasure enough, and she doesn't feel like she can talk to you about it without you getting defensive. So over time, she just loses interest. Try having a conversation with her about what pleasure means to her. Make sure she reaches climax first every time and show her that you genuinely enjoy being the giver. In my experience, women need to feel listened to, respected, and that their partner cares deeply about consent. Try spending a night just pleasing her the entire time with no expectation for yourself. Tell her you'll take as long as she needs and there's no rush. I bet it would work wonders. This may be hard to hear, but you sound like you might be a selfish lover. That could be your problem. Story 21, sort of a weird distinction, but does she not like having stuff done to her or not like doing stuff to you? Or, as was my case before I figured the whole thing out, does she not like doing stuff to you because she doesn't want to feel pressured that you'll do stuff to her? Once I realized that chasing her around trying to please her was hurting more than helping, we got to a much happier place. She's much more comfortable with kissing or touching or letting me touch her to get me off if she knows I'm not going to try and jump her. She describes it as being able to get all the intimacy without any of the pressure. Please pardon my language, but try giving her a gentle back rub in the morning while you gently embrace her. For statistical analysis, we've gone from intimacy once or twice a year to once or twice a week. Stressing and straining to get something unattainable is what causes relationship stress. Find what you can do so you can get over the obstacle and focus on the love that brought you together in the first place. Story 22. It only gets worse. My ex-wife said it was birth control that killed her sex drive. Once we got married, she only wanted to when she wanted another child. After 17 years of marriage and 4 amazing children, I can say I had more resentment than any 10 people can bear. Then she left me and took my kids 1,500 miles away. Not only was I full of resentment, I was broken. Any woman I dated after had to keep up with my sexual needs or I was gone. Took years of breaking hearts until I realized I was wrong. I am married now to an amazing woman who is ready and wanting anytime, anywhere. We make love, screw, or just give oral 5 to 6 times a week and love to be together. The love you feel will get warped by your resentment, and if you let it build too long, it'll change you for the worse. Don't let her lack of desire for you be your downfall. Move on and find someone sexually available. She's out there waiting,